So, hello, I'm Paula I'm a PhD student in sociology, and I come from the Institute of Social Sciences from Zagreb, from Croatia. And I will today present the paper on inhabiting public spaces in Zagreb about roofless women's experiences, strategies, and resistance. Very shortly for introduction, just a general picture of homelessness in Croatia. It is quite a new phenomenon, not that it never existed, but in the time of socialism, it was quite not given any attention. And only in 2011, homeless people actually received legal status in the Republic of Croatia, and the definition of homelessness first appeared in the Social Welfare Act. There are quite some problems in defining and estimating the numbers of homelessness in Croatia, as it's a general issue, but especially because the numbers are counted only on spaces of shelter spaces, and NGOs estimate way bigger numbers. What is also important for this paper is this migration to bigger cities, because despite this legal obligation that every district has their own shelter, 10 of the districts don't actually have shelters. So then people who find themselves in homelessness move to bigger cities, especially in Zagreb, that is then quite overcrowded by people. And also quite some estimates recently about this increasing number of women in homelessness asking for help. So shortly, when we talk about research that was done on women in homelessness in Croatia in general, there is not that much research. But there is one study about homelessness from a gender perspective that was done in 14 shelters, and that did show that women deal with same issues as men, but also with additional issues of discrimination, violence, traditional responsibility to care for children. And that they do report this high frustration, feelings of abandonment and exclusion. So international literature dealt with this issue of women in homelessness from the 80s approximately, and these are some of the main things that are now important to present from this research. And this is that women are vulnerable to homelessness, which is obvious, but wasn't maybe for some time. So especially here in Croatia, this is of course, there is this gender division of labor that then produces inequality and so on, relationship of women with a home that is traditional, spaces that are not home. Then women's pathways to homelessness are specific, different to men's pathways. They include sexual abuse, childhood neglect, abandonment, family issues, death of spouse, maternal trauma. And then when they do end up in homelessness, women's experience is quite more frequent physical sexual violence, greater exposure to health risks, and greater feelings of fear and insecurity in comparison. So what is also especially happening in Croatia is this invisibility of women in homelessness. In Croatia, it was, especially in NGOs, the thought that there is only 1/3 of people in homelessness are actually women. But what is clearly shown is that because of the definitions, methods of measurement, and also, for example, women with children are often then hidden by the system, not counted as homeless, or the strategies of women that are usually as avoiding the streets. Also, for example, we have these narratives about female homelessness was historically often linked to prostitution. So it provoked extremely repressive responses, and then it was quite underestimated. When we talk about this, it's very important also to note that in the literature, there is a quite of it's implied how the exclusion of women from public spaces and homeless women is present for several reasons. Women do face increased danger in public spaces, and then there is this stigma because of the traditional connection of private spheres for women and public spheres for men, and then women is especially threatening in the streets in this way. And then this general exclusion for public urban spaces that is quite known and obvious, and all the research do show increased control and policing and regulation and criminalization, especially in Zagreb, that our research showed. in comparison, for example, to other cities in Croatia. And also this omnipresence of hostile architecture. For example, this is the picture of the waiting room in the main central station, train station in Zagreb, with these barriers to prevent this sleeping. So homeless women are excluded because they're homeless and because they're women, but some research do show that women do sleep on the street or in the public. And several research that interviewed women in homelessness show that a vast majority do end up in street homelessness, but the difference is in the way they cope and adapt then on the street. Very interesting is this from Wardrow about homeless body as a second skin. So people react differently depending on their gender, how they cope living on the street. She says that men are then more likely to expand their bodies and be maybe territorial or protect certain parts of the public space, and women would shrink and then maybe rarely engage in anything that could make them visible. Casey, Goody, and Reeve say that women who live in public spaces are passive. They do live in public spaces and then they break the rules of these spaces and challenge them, which is a form of resistance. Now this paper tries to not deal with this numbers or how many women are there on the street, do they sleep on the street, but more to see the experiences of those women who have experience of this street homelessness and to see then how they cope. This is a part of a larger project exploring homelessness and pathways to social inclusion, comparative study of context and challenges in Swiss and Croatian cities, but this is focused more on Zagreb, and the approach was ethnography, and 9 interviews with 6 women are presented here alongside with fieldwork in an outreach humanitarian organization in Zagreb. So first I looked at the experiences of these women with housing services. There are 3 shelters in Zagreb, but just 1 shelter accepts women. And there are 2 day centers, which were, especially during the pandemic, quite inaccessible. But out of our 6 participants, only 2 had experience of being in a shelter, and 1 said that it was felt very insecure for her. She was feeling threatened by the other people there and didn't feel safe, and then left after 3 months back to the street. Others who couldn't access the shelters said that it was for various reasons. 1 didn't want to report her violent partner, so couldn't go to a shelter or because she didn't want to go to a safe house. Other didn't have administrative rights to accommodation, or the shelters were overcrowded. So in lots of ways, it was inaccessible to them. Also, very important to know this distance of these shelters from the city center. They were more in periphery, which was not then unable to their other means of survival for them, or they would lose the financial assistance. When talking about these first experiences and challenges, of course, talking about these difficulties in finding places to sleep and feelings of insecurity, of fear. All the women talked about these unmet health needs, menstrual necessities that were inaccessible, or different gynecological problems, urine disease that one woman was talking about. Especially when we talk about this violence and sexual harassment, this was very prominent in these narrations. It was physical attacks, trying to steal stuff from them on the street. A lot of these sexual advances, for example, if a woman has to do some hygiene and then has to take off her clothes, she's risking a lot, as Natasha here says, or this that maybe men offer them showering or food and then expect something in return. And now regarding the use of public spaces, also they report a lot of these challenges. So most of them were focused on the city center, mainly this area of main central train station and all the near areas, some tourist areas, parks, but they were not available to them all the time, but only at certain times and under certain conditions. So it was very important on the one side for them because this was a way to survive. Here they could socialize, find other people in the same situation, earn some money, inform themselves. but also this is a very known place where homeless people gather. So there they felt especially exposed and endangered, and often police patrols there and then does these cleanings of the area, and often even this police violence was reported by them. So it's connected with a lot of fear and constant danger. When now I want to look at their...
You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I will hurry up, but I'm soon done. So regarding these strategies, there were like 3 main group themes that I identified. First were hiding homelessness in a way of physically being hidden or hiding their homeless status. So in a way physical, they were using toilets and nights, or being awake during the night and trying to run during the day, or trying to hide it like this, or it could be in hiding that they're homeless. This was especially important this year, hygiene, and being the same as not sticking out. Also avoiding some places. For example, one participant said she didn't eat for days because she didn't want to go to the soup kitchen, which would like this identify her. This is also going to the wagons, which are very important for them because they're warm places, but they don't go there in the normal hours, but in more when it's the police cannot see them. Okay, and now the second was this finding partners and grouping. So women looked for company. This Natasha had a technique that she found, even though she witnessed violence towards other women, she felt protected because she was very good with the other men that were sleeping in that place. So she, in this way, found her protection. Or Yasminka explained how a lot of women then find a partner on the street. One other participant also had this strategy. Or she also explains here how she could feel more safer with the crowd. And here they were drawing this in the waiting of a station. They wrote these different, like this is, for example, a notorious police officer, or things that they were also like inscribing themselves in these places. So last one is this distance from unwanted identities. So as this is very profound, this loss of home for women. And what they did immediately, without even us or me having to ask this, was this distancing from sex work and survival sex that is very often connected with women in homelessness. They said they didn't do it, they don't want to do it. And then they emphasize their strength, their pride, that they do not agree with the actions that are usually recognized or associated with homelessness. They would emphasize their work experience in life, which would be like this salvaging the self, so they could maintain this positive self-image, and also the hobbies that were very important for them. So keeping the identity they had before. So it's not only that they're now homeless, they are something else. And also what was very interesting was this, how they wanted to appear dangerous on the street. So Natalia trained, tried to keep herself in good physical strength, so she could fight back if somebody attacks her. So just to conclude, homeless people, and especially homeless women, are in the wrong place in these public spaces, which was very clearly shown here in this research in Zagreb. And they face very specific challenges on the street and multiple exclusion, and looking at their strategies, they used these invisibility strategies, what was shown here, but also they are visible and they do demonstrate their agency and fight back, and are sleep in places that are visible and known for homeless people together. And what is definitely needed is more research, more extensive research in this issue, as it shows that homelessness is quite a gendered experience, and there is a big necessity for these policies to be directed toward these approaches, which is true for Croatia, but also in general, as this mayor here states. Despite the research, it's not a lot of change. So thank you. I hope I didn't take too much time.
Okay, thank you, Paula.